What if a single kind of niche industrial chemical, maybe one you never even thought about, could actually give us some profound insights into the whole global economy? What if it could show us where industrial growth is really happening right now and maybe hint at where things are heading? Today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that. It's the HCFC 142b Refrigerant market. And look, this isn't just about, chemical compounds. Think of it more like an economic indicator, a way to track the pulse of global industry. Now, for context, this HCFC 142b, it's mainly used in making foam insulation, right? For buildings mostly, and some specialized refrigeration too. So following its market is kind of like looking at the building blocks of, well, modern industry in cities worldwide.
Yeah, exactly. And our mission today for this deep dive is really to pull out the key insights from a recent market report. We're looking at projections starting back in 2021, looking at to 2025, and then all the way out to 2033. We'll go region by region, pinpoint some surprising growth areas, and really talk about what these trends mean, what a specific chemical like this tells us about bigger global economic shifts.
Okay, sounds fascinating. Let's unpack this.
Right. So let's start with the global overview just to set the scene. The big picture. Back in 2021, the total sales revenue for HCFC 142b was just over $1.3 billion.
Okay.
Now, looking ahead, projections show that climbing to around $1.58 billion by 2025. And then it takes a pretty significant leap, estimated to hit about $2.3 billion by 2033.
Wow.
Yeah, so globally, that points to a pretty healthy compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, of about 4.9% over that whole period.
Okay, 4.9% globally, solid, consistent growth, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So let's zoom in a bit. North America, often seen as, a mature, established market. Does the data for HCFC 142b reflect that, or are there any surprises there?
North America definitely fits that description. A mature market showing, steady, pretty predictable growth. The total market value for the region started around $518 million in 2021. It's expected to reach nearly $888 million by 2033.
Right.
So that's an annual growth rate, a CAGR of about 4.5%.
Okay.
Within that, the U.S. is the big player, of course. It's growing from roughly $470 million to just over $700 million. That's a AGR of about 4.3%. Steady. Interestingly, though, Canada shows a slightly stronger pace. Its market is projected to almost double, going from about $63 million up to $118 million.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a CGR of over 5.3%. So it suggests, ongoing expansion, maybe related to infrastructure, but within that stable base.
That's a good benchmark then.
Okay.
All right, let's hop across the Atlantic. How does Europe compare? Is it a similar story to North America, or are we seeing different patterns?
Europe. Yeah, it shows a pretty similar pattern. A steady climb. Its market value started around $376 million back in 2021.
Oh.
The projection puts it close to $650 million by 2033.
Yeah.
So that's an annual growth rate of about 4.6%. Very close to North America overall.
Right.
But what's interesting within Europe is France. It seems to be on a slightly higher trajectory. It's looking to nearly double its market size, going from about 48 million up to around 91 million. That's a strong 5.7% annual rate.
Noticeably higher.
Yeah. And even more striking, maybe, is the rest of Europe category. That chunk is showing quite robust growth, almost 6% annually, climbing from about 76 million to over 152 million. So that hints, perhaps, at significant construction or maybe industrial reinvestment happening in those other European countries.
Okay, now, here's where I suspect things might get really interesting, where maybe the global economic story starts to diverge more sharply. Let's talk Asia Pacific. It's been such an engine for global growth in so many areas.
Yeah.
What's the picture for HCFC 142b there? What's it telling us about their industrial expansion?
Oh, absolutely. The Asia-Pacific market is, it's surging. This is where you really see that explosive foundational industrial growth reflected in the numbers. The projection shows it almost doubling in value from around $246 million in 2021 to over $472 million by 2033.
Wow.
And that comes with a strong CUGR, nearly 5.9% annually.
Okay.
Now, China is naturally the leader in just sheer volume. Its market's growing from about 76 million to 138 million. But the real standout, I think, is India. Its market is on an incredibly steep upward curve.
Right.
Yeah, growing from roughly 43 million to over 90 million. That's an eye-popping 6.7% growth rate per year.
6.7%. That's significant.
It really is. And also, keep an eye on Singapore. It's showing an even more impressive annual growth rate, 7.4%, expanding its market from about 8 million to over 18 million. This isn't just, small increases. This speaks to massive new infrastructure, new manufacturing capacity being built.
That's some serious momentum. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fundamentally different, like you said, from North America and Europe. Okay, let's shift south now. South America. Are we seeing similar strong upward trends there, indicators of new industrial activity?
We certainly are, yeah. South America's market, it was around $88 million back in 2021. It's projected to nearly double as well, hitting about $174 million by 2033.
Okay,
And that's growing at a significant annual rate of almost 6%.
nearly 6%. So also outpacing the mature markets?
Exactly. And what's quite telling there is the strong performance from countries like Argentina and Colombia. Both are posting annual growth rates, CAGRs, close to 6.7%, similar to India, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, it really signals notable expansion in their industrial sectors that rely on this specific chemical.
All right. Now let's turn to the Middle East. It has its own unique economic drivers, obviously. What's the story there for HCFC 142b? Is it keeping pace or is it on a different track?
The Middle East shows a distinctly different picture, much more modest growth. It's expanding, but at a slower annual rate, just over 2.5%.
Oh, quite a bit lower.
Yeah, quite a bit. Moving from about 47 million in 2021 to an estimated 67 million by 2033. You see countries like Saudi Arabia and Turkey showing, modest gains. UAE and Egypt are a bit higher, maybe around 3 to 4% annually. It suggests maybe more selective use, perhaps project-specific rather than that broad industrial boom we see elsewhere.
Okay, that makes sense. And then there's Africa. Often talked about as, the next frontier for emerging markets across many industries. What does this specific refrigerant market tell us about Africa's growth? How does it compare?
Africa is, well, it's arguably the most compelling story in this whole report, actually. For HCFC 142b, at least, it's really emerging as a key market. It boasts one of the highest growth rates globally, a striking annual increase of over 8.1%.
8%. Wow.
8.18%, yeah. Its market size, starting from about 26 million in 2021, is projected to just soar, expected to hit over 62 million by 2033.
More than doubling then.
Easily. And countries like Nigeria, South Africa, and also the broader rest of Africa category, they're all reflecting really strong annual growth rates. We're talking 7.8% and higher across the board there.
So this isn't just emergence.
No, exactly. This signifies rapid, really foundational industrialization, infrastructure development happening across the continent at a significant pace. And what's truly fascinating here, if we kind of zoom back out now and look at all these regions together, it paints a very clear narrative, doesn't it, about global economic development. You've got North America and Europe, the established industrial centers, showing stable, moderate growth. Their bases are mature. Growth seems to be about maintenance, upgrades, some incremental expansion.
Right. Steady, but not spectacular.
Exactly. But then you look at these surging growth trajectories in the emerging markets. Asia Pacific, South America, and especially Africa. This isn't just about selling a bit more chemical. It feels like a reflection of massive foundational industrialization happening right now. New factories, new buildings, new cold storage infrastructure, all being built pretty much from the ground up. And they need chemicals like HCFC 142b at a much faster rate.
I see.
It's a very tangible sign, really, of where the global economy is actively reshaping itself.
So what does this all mean then? It sounds like it's way more than just tracking one specific chemical, isn't it?
Yeah.
It seems like these trends, in something as basic as a refrigerant component, offer this unique, almost microscopic view of the world economy. It really shows you where the actual heavy lifting of industrial growth is taking place globally. And it's clearly shifting. We've taken quite a journey today just following this one chemical, HCFC 142b. It really goes to show how digging into what seems like super niche industry data can reveal these, profound, sometimes surprising global patterns, economic shifts, industrial development. It helps you kind of connect the dots on how the world is literally being built and where.
And it does raise an important question, doesn't it, thinking ahead? Given these really distinct regional growth patterns, especially that rapid surge in emerging economies, what are the broader implications, for future global manufacturing, supply chains, resource allocation, maybe even geopolitics, all stemming from this foundational industrial growth?
That's a great point.
And it makes you wonder, What other, maybe seemingly niche industries might be mirroring these same profound shifts, giving us clues about the next wave of global economic evolution? Something to think about. So, have you ever considered the hidden stories behind some of the, seemingly mundane compounds that quietly shape our world? Today, we're uncovering one of those stories. We're focusing on a chemical that's been a silent but pretty significant player in our daily lives for decades. We're taking a deep dive into the evolving dynamics of the HCFC 142b refrigerant market. HCFC, that's hydrochlorofluorocarbon. It's a class of compounds that, well, while incredibly efficient, has this complex environmental legacy. You see it particularly in refrigeration systems and foam blowing applications in industrial and commercial sectors.
Yeah, and our mission for this deep dive is really to try and unravel what's become a global environmental and economic puzzle.
Yeah.
We want to understand not just, what HCFC 142b is, but why its market is so incredibly intricate. I mean, you've got a surprising continued use in some parts of the world right alongside this really strong push for its phase out everywhere else. And crucially, what innovative alternatives are now stepping up to fill that void. It's a lot to unpack.
Okay, let's start piecing this puzzle together then. Before all the phase out talk, what exactly made HCFC 142b such a widespread success? Was it purely about cost, or were there other performance benefits that made it the sort of preferred choice globally for so long?
That's a great question because its initial appeal was pretty undeniable back then. HCFC 142b was highly valued for its exceptional efficiency and its cost effectiveness. That was key. In those big industrial and commercial sectors, where large-scale refrigeration and insulation are absolutely critical, it provided a very reliable, very affordable solution. For decades, it was basically the go-to compound. Simple as that, really.
And what's particularly fascinating, I think, is why it continues to hold ground in some regions even now. You'd think with all the environmental concern, it would just disappear, right?
Exactly, and it's precisely that complexity that makes this market so interesting to look at. Despite being a hydrochlorofluorocarbon, and we know about its ozone-depleting properties, it remains significant in many developing countries. This is largely due to its affordability, like we said, but also because the Montreal Protocol, that's the agreement governing the phase-out. It established a structured, kind of gradual transition strategy that allows for countries to move at different paces. So it's not a sudden global cutoff for everyone at the same time.
Right. Okay. And here's where we uncover a truly unexpected piece of this puzzle. This emergence of a robust secondary market. You'd think phase out means out with the old, but instead we're seeing this kind of booming trade in recycled HCFC 142b. How significant is this really, and what does it actually mean for the broader market picture?
Well, it's incredibly significant, yeah. The growing availability of recycling and reclamation services has genuinely fostered this market. It allows for the continued use of reclaimed HCFC 142b, mostly in older systems. And you have to understand, this isn't just about being eco-conscious, though that's part of it. For many industries, especially in developing nations, doing a full overhaul of their legacy refrigeration and phone systems, I mean, that can cost tens of millions of dollars. It's just not feasible right now for many. So the secondary market effectively buys them time. It lets them maintain critical infrastructure without needing new, expensive production. But, and this is a big but, it also creates this unique regulatory dilemma. How do you monitor what effectively becomes a ghost market? It's both a necessary stopgap solution and a potential loophole in those phase-out efforts. It's tricky.
That's a really critical point, a ghost market.
Agreed.
So, okay, we've pieced together the historical use and this surprising secondary market dynamic, but the next puzzle piece forces us to confront the biggest challenge HCFC 142b faces, its environmental impact and, well, the headwinds pushing it out.
Exactly. As a hydrochlorofluorocarbon, HCFC 142b is, well, by its very nature, subject to strict phase-out regulations. This is because of its ozone-depleting potential, or ODP. That's its capacity to break down the protective ozone layer in our atmosphere. We can't ignore that. And globally, there's been a really clear shift. Developed countries have already taken strong steps toward pretty much eliminating its usage. And even in other regions, you're seeing stricter controls accelerating its decline now. The momentum is definitely there.
And it's not just about the environmental concerns driving this, is it? I mean, beyond the regulatory stick, are there significant economic pressures making companies want to move away from it?
Absolutely. Yeah, the operational costs of just handling HCFC 142b have grown considerably. Think about it. They heighten compliance requirements for environmental regulations, needing specialized equipment for safe transport, even the disposal protocols. All of that stuff adds up. It makes its continued use increasingly expensive, even for those maybe relying on that secondary market we talked about. The
Yeah.
costs are creeping up.
Right. And building on that point about economic pressure, we can't ignore the rising tide of competition, these newer, greener alternatives. What are they, and how quickly are they genuinely replacing HCFC 142b out in the field?
Precisely. The emergence of these environmentally friendlier alternatives, primarily we're talking about hydrofluorocarbons, HFCs, and hydrofluorolefins, HFOs, is genuinely shifting the landscape. These alternatives offer significantly lower ozone depletion potential, which is great, and crucially, a lower global warming impact, or GWP.
GWP, right? Global warming potential. How much they contribute to climate change.
Exactly. So they're better on both fronts, environmentally speaking. But this raises that important question. How quickly can these alternatives truly take over? Especially when you've got such deeply embedded legacy systems all around the world using the old stuff.
That really is the core dilemma, isn't it? Is it purely a cost barrier stopping everyone from switching immediately? Or are there also significant technical hurdles? Like retrofitting older systems with these newer, greener options. Is that easy?
Well, it's both, really, to some extent. Costs are definitely a major factor, no doubt about it. But the technical side is also a real consideration. You have to ensure compatibility, make sure the efficiency holds up, maintain safety standards with existing infrastructure, and it isn't always straightforward. It can be complex.
Okay, and that really gets to the core of where this market is heading now. So looking forward, what are the dominant trends that are actively shaping HCFC 142b's future, both in its decline and in the rise of these alternatives?
Well, one key trend we're still seeing is the continued expansion, maybe consolidation is a better word, of that market for reclaimed and recycled HCFCs. As we discussed, these remain pretty crucial for maintaining those legacy systems, especially in countries where the phase-out timeline is longer, sort of a pragmatic bridge solution. Extending the life of existing infrastructure while the transition to newer technologies matures and becomes more accessible.
Okay, so that's one side, maintaining the old. But alongside that, how are industries and governments proactively pushing the shift towards the sustainable alternatives? Are we seeing a significant increase in, say, regulatory enforcement or maybe support for greener technologies?
Definitely. On the industry side, companies are adopting new low GWP alternatives. You hear about refrigerants like R134a and various HFO blends more and more. They're making this shift partly because these compounds align better with modern environmental goals,
Yeah.
and partly because new equipment standards basically demand it. And yes, governments are also stepping up enforcement. They're creating more robust frameworks for monitoring HEOC usage. And they're actively pushing stakeholders, companies, users towards cleaner compliant refrigeration technologies. Often it's a combination of regulation and maybe some incentives to ease the transition.
Right. So we've traced this really dynamic journey of HCFC 142b from its widespread use, almost ubiquity, through to its complex phase out and the innovative solutions now emerging. This deep dive, I think, really illustrates how environmental policies, technological innovation, and just plain economic realities all intertwine in this global puzzle.
Absolutely. And that brings us to our final thought for you, the listener, to maybe consider. How does the life cycle of just a single chemical like HCFC 142b reflect the broader global challenge we face?
Yeah.
Balancing industrial progress with environmental responsibility. What does this deep dive suggest about our collective ability globally to transition to truly sustainable technologies? And maybe how quickly can we really shift away from those deeply embedded legacy systems towards solutions that are truly future-proof?
It's a big question to ponder.